Welcome back, guys. Or if you're new to my channel, this is Automotive Anonymous, and that's the 2025 Hyundai Palisade. But more specifically, this is one of the upper trim levels called the Limited, in the color that Hyundai likes to call Moonlight Cloud, which is a very dark blue metallic paint, which actually looks really good, but it kind of changes colors in different lighting. And today I get a review for you guys and share the good, the bad, and the ugly to help you decide if this might be the right 3-row crossover for you and your family, so you can expect to see a walk around. All the specs, initial driving impressions, 0 to 60 on GPS, and my final thoughts, and huge thanks to the Twin Falls Chevy for letting me borrow this slightly used one for the day. I'll link them below if you're interested. They sell below MSRP and they ship all over the country. And with that said, let's dive right into this review. And if you like Hyundai, the Palisade, or my video, please be so kind to consider liking my video. That lets me know you want to watch more stuff like this, but it'll actually help you by having YouTube choose to show you more stuff like this too. Thank you so much. But if you're new to Hyundai or the Palisade, there's actually a lot that you guys should know. First of all, Hyundai actually started back in 1967, so they've been around for quite a while. But over the last decade or so, they've really made a big splash. They've become the 3rd largest automotive company in the world, just behind Toyota, just behind Volkswagen. The Hyundai Kia group has really done quite well for themselves. But the Palisade, this thing came about just a few years ago in 2020, so this is still the first generation of it. It sells around 80,000 units a year in the United States, and it sells around 160,000 units per year globally. But just like Hyundai being a South Korean company, these are actually made or homegrown in the South Korean market, and then they're shipped to the United States. So far, my impressions of it is the quality control seems to be pretty good. And there's a lot of reasons why people like these. They have 3 rows, either a 7 or 8 seat configuration, and they are a top safety pick, plus they compete against a lot of the other unibody or crossover mid-sized SUVs in this class. But unlike Kias and Hyundais of the past, which the Kia variation of this Palisade is the Kia Telluride, they ride on the same chassis, they're not cheap like they used to be. They're actually pretty well priced or compared to a lot of the other Japanese and American crossover 3rd-row vehicles, which is starting in the mid-upper $30,000 ballpark. There are 7 trim levels of the Palisade, so there's basically one for every budget if you can budget for this sort of vehicle, and this one specifically being a Limited means it's about a $48,000 vehicle. That's before destination, delivery, any extra add-ons, and hopefully you can get a pretty decent discount below MSRP. But for that price point, you get a lot of safety features. Like I mentioned, it's a top safety pick, so you have blind spot monitoring, adaptive cruise control, heads-up display, a fancy 10-inch screen, heated leather seats all around, kind of a panoramic sunroof, and a lot of other features that you're going to see throughout this video. And then the dimensions of this are basically exactly identical to most of the other unibody 3-row vehicles, like the Ford Explorer, the Subaru Ascent, the Hyundai Pilot, the Mazda CX-9 and 90. They all are basically the exact same exterior dimensions, which is about 16.5 feet long, with about a 9.5 foot wheelbase, roughly 6.5 feet wide, and about 5 3/4 feet tall. This one weighs 4,200 to 4,500 pounds, depending on basically if it's a front-wheel drive version or an all-wheel drive version like this higher trim level is. So it's on the upper end of that. It can actually tow about 5,000 pounds the way it's spec'd, and it has a payload capacity that is actually fairly decent at about 1,173 pounds. So between the roof rack that's added on this one, the interior, the cargo area, you can fit just under 1,200 pounds worth of people and stuff before you are overloading the wheels and the suspension. And then it has about 7.9 inches of ground clearance, a 368 final drive ratio, and it can do a full circle in about 38 or 39 feet, which actually does feel pretty agile on its feet for this big of a vehicle. And then the last few things to mention here is the gas door is thankfully located on the driver's side. When I lock the vehicle, the gas door even locks, so the bums can't attempt to siphon any of your 18.8 gallons of gas. These vary between about 19 city and 24 to 26 highway, depending on which wheel, tire, the weight, the whole configuration of it. So this one with just under 19-gallon tank and getting about 25 on the highway, its max road trip and range is just about 450 miles. And then this is the wheel and tire. It's a hand kick all season. If this was a brand new one, it would probably have about 8 to 9 30-seconds to tread, which is not fantastic, but it's about average for the class. And then it's a 245 50/20 with a temporary spare tire in the back. And then you can just leave this in your pocket. The proximity key, it does have lock, unlock, power lift gate, panic button, remote start, but you also have proximity key features to lock and unlock the vehicle, and they seem to work pretty quick. Otherwise, the driver's side door panel, it's all black, soft touch materials, easy to wipe down, easy to clean. Some interesting textures around. There's kind of a variety, but most of it's pretty uniform, There's a decent sized bottle holder and snack pocket, Harman Kardon speakers on this trim level. And then you have Palisade on the door sill, a protective cover over the cloth mats, rubberized dead pedal and regular pedals. OBD2 port should be under there. Fuse box, these are your options on this one. Ventilation, lighting stock, tilting and telescoping wheel. And then this is your heated ventilated leather seat with a couple different power moonroofs up top. Sitting inside here, there's really a lot to talk about, but most importantly, it's really comfortable and you have good visibility. I actually really like the seats, and all the heated and ventilated seat features seem to do a really good job. The horn, it's high pitched. It doesn't sound excessively loud, but it's loud enough. You have paddle shifters on the back of this leather wrapped heated steering wheel for your 8-speed automatic transmission. Everything is within reach, memory seats, easy to get to. And when you fire it up with the push button start, check out the displays. This is very common for a lot of current Hyundai products, and it's pretty cool. You can go through the menu. You can check out a few different things right there. It really is a pretty cool digital display. And even when you go into your different drive modes, it's going to change around and give you some different colors and just a little bit of excitement in your life. You can also lock it into 4-wheel drive, or I keep saying that, I mean all-wheel drive versus just front-wheel drive on models that are equipped with it. The front screen is decent. I feel like that's too busy, and that's too busy. A lot of boring blue icons, but overall, it does an okay job. And then you have a lot of other options here. You have physical climate controls and gauges and things like that. To get into your heated displays, you can do all of those down here for you and your passenger, your drive modes. Auto vehicle hold, the parking cameras, which are really cool. Nice trajectory lines move. Check those out, especially on the top-down view. I really like how that's software engineered. Electronic parking brake. You have your different push buttons for the shifting. And then you have some cup holders, a wireless charger, some plugins. And then you have another pretty decent sized center console with the lifty tray and two 12 volts in there, which you don't usually see 2 of those. So I do find that pretty cool. Otherwise, you have garage door openers right there. You have mirrors, you have all of your options. You have LED lighting, you have the moonroof and the second moonroof. Otherwise, let's turn it off and we'll hop in the back. The second row is really well designed, just like the front. Like a lot of these 3-row crossovers, you have an extra shade beyond the factory window tint. You also have a nice door panel, a couple cup holders, which again is pretty common for the class. Small extra bottle down there or snack pocket. Harman Kardon advertised speakers, which these speakers do sound pretty decent for this setup. And then this is your leather heated second row. There you can see a little bit more of the power moonroof up top. But there's a few different ways to get in here. There's a step in case you want to get up to your roof rack or rails, the way that this one is spec'd currently. But sitting in here, you have a pretty high-end looking map pocket if you want to be a backseat driver back here. You have all the controls to, actually you have ventilation too. You have some plugins, household style right there. You do have kind of a hump right there, probably for the drive shaft to get to the rear. And then you still have a physical bar to slide forward and back. So you have quite a bit of room if you need it. You can also recline the seats with the handle that's on the side, and you can actually get really comfortable and have a wonderful time being chauffeured. But you have 2 different main ways to get into the third row. You can either go through the center or you can bring the seat forward. I guess you can always climb through the hatch and climb over the back seats, but not very many people are gonna wanna do it that way. So I'm just gonna push the button right here for where I'm at. If you're stuck in the back, you could also reach for this button, but it's kind of cool that it's kind of an electronic system, and then you have the steps right here. It's never convenient, it's never easy getting into the back of these, because at 16.5 feet long, you just don't have a ton of room. But it's about the same as the Ford Explorer I hopped out of a few days ago. It's about the same as the Subaru Ascent I'm comparing this to in another video. These are all about the same, but you do have a little bit higher end materials and feeling back here. You have your own window, your own speaker, vent up there, cup holders. So even though this is basically just extra cargo capacity when you don't have people in the third row, I think Hyundai actually did a pretty good job with this setup, and I like this more than some of the other vehicles I've been in. The back of the Palisade I think looks okay, but I actually like how the Kia Telluride looks better. And then this paint looks fantastic when it's clean, when the clear coat's all waxed up. But whenever it has any sort of debris on it, any sort of mild scratches, you're gonna notice all of that on dark blue colors. I used to own a few dark blue cars, and I know that firsthand. But otherwise, there's a few different ways to open the hatch. You can either push the button that's under the Hyundai emblem. You can push the button that's on the dashboard. You can even climb over the third row or use the power liftgate right here that you paid for. It's actually powered on both sides, 2 electronic struts, and It's really quiet when it opens. But this 3-row, 16.5-foot long SUV, like all the other ones, has basically the same exact cargo capacity. 18 cubic feet back here with a little bit of extra storage under the very back portion with some of your tire changing tools. And then you have your full temporary spare down here. Sometimes they're hidden away, sometimes they're underneath. That's where it is on the Palisade. And when you drop the seats, when you drop the 3rd row, you have 46 cubic feet. When you drop the 2nd row, you have 85. And that is all very common on this class of vehicle. And everything is powered. You can see it all works pretty well. Let's see if it'll, yeah, that's pretty cool. So it doesn't just lower, but it also lifts back up again. Oh, but does the 2nd row lift? Nope, the 2nd row does not lift, only the 3rd row. Otherwise, you can lower it down right here. And if you're the lucky duck that gets the right shock, and you also have proximity key features on this side, which is very common. And then the door panel that looks basically identical to the driver's side, minus some of the extra controls. You still have Harman Kardon speakers advertised. I guess I do wish that the snack pocket bellowed out a little bit further, but it is what it is. Palisade right there. You still have power controls and then ventilated heated seat, just like the driver's side. And then I didn't want to mention this earlier, but you have a tunnel that goes through it with a couple more plugins. Pretty cool. No storage above the glove box, but you have more than enough storage throughout to make up for it. And then a pretty big glove box right here, but I don't see any plugins, but there is some LED lighting, which I do appreciate. And if you guys can already see it, there's some purple ambient lighting, which I really think is neat and I'm digging it. Otherwise though, let's come around to the front. I'll pop the hood and show you what the 3.8 liter V6 looks like. Under the hood is the 3.8 liter V6 engine with an 8-speed automatic. Best of all, Hyundai still offers a 5-year bumper to bumper or 60,000 mile and 10-year 100,000 mile powertrain warranty. So if you buy one of these, you're not really taking that much of a gamble because you're going to be covered for such a long time, just like they have been in the past. And one of the reasons why in the last 10 years, Hyundai has become one of the biggest companies in the automotive world. But anyways, this V6, it makes 291 horsepower at 6,000 RPM, so you do have to rev it out. And 262 pound-feet of torque, and that's at 5,200 RPM. So that's not the highest class-leading torque number, and that's at a very high RPM. So you might be thinking that it feels gutless while driving it. But actually, because of the fairly aggressive final drive ratio and the fairly aggressiveness of the first gear ratio, it actually puts the power down surprisingly well, and it almost feels like you have turbo boost in first gear, which you don't. But it's alluding to that feeling. But you have your reservoirs on the periphery, pretty easy to identify and get to. You also have a couple fuse boxes. You have your air filter that goes to the throttle body and then into the intake manifold. You have your battery, and you actually have quite a bit of room to work on this. I can see part of the exhaust manifold on this side of the V, the engine mount right there. There's actually quite a bit of room for a big or a bigger 3.8 liter V6. Anyways, guys, let's drop the hood and take it for a drive. Initial driving impressions of the Hyundai Palisade. Let's get up to speed. 3.8 liters, it does a pretty good job. Overall riding in this, it's actually funner to drive than I was expecting. For a 3-row SUV, visibility is pretty good. This one does have tint on the front windows from the previous owner that it was just very briefly owned. But you can see out the windows pretty good. The side mirrors also do a pretty good job. They're fairly large and you can see right down the center of the rear view mirror. Overall, the driving position of this, the seats, everything from my body type, I'm finding it very comfortable. When you open up the storage compartments, you have a lot of trays, you have a lot of places to keep your belongings. The dashboard is maybe a little bit higher up than on some of the other crossovers, but visibility still forward facing is pretty good. The hood slopes down slightly, but again, not as much as other ones, but more than you need, more than most people need. When I roll down the window, I have a normal amount of wind buffeting. It doesn't seem to be excessive at about 50 miles an hour. Let's see how we do hopping on the brakes and taking a corner. I'll try to go around the corner as fast as I reasonably can. Oh yeah, that didn't do too bad. And you can see when I turn on the signals, you get the camera displays. Pretty cool. Honestly, a lot of the graphics on this vehicle are pretty fun. The Hyundai seems to have pretty good technology when you do opt for this expensive a trim level. Blind spot monitoring, all the adaptive cruise settings, the heads-up display, you can see the cutout right there again. Overall, it's pretty good, and even from a roll, like if you have to pass someone going up a slight hill like I am right now, the 3.8 liter, I mean, it's not gonna push you back in your seat, but it seems to do okay when the vehicle's unloaded. But keep in mind, you can tow up to 5,000 pounds. You could put another 1,000 pounds of payload beyond what me and the backpack weigh in here. So I do think it's gonna be struggling a little bit if you live at altitude like me and you have the vehicle loaded down, but just cruising around the country feels pretty good. Here's a bump, let's see how it does. For 20-inch wheels, I think that's forgivable. That's pretty adequate. Overall, it's a nice place to be. I definitely recommend you test drive one of these for yourself, test drive the competition, and you know what? Let me get to the private road and we'll do a 0 to 60. 0 to 60 in the Palisade. Keep in mind, density altitude's 4,400 feet, so this vehicle is down in power at least 12%. I have it in sport mode, 4-wheel drive, or all-wheel drive, and traction off. It's still a bit of a brake rev, and let's go. And true 0 to 60 came in at 7.74, or a little bit faster if you discredit a rollout. My final thoughts of the current generation Hyundai Palisade is it's actually a lot better than I was expecting. And I've driven a lot of other 3-row SUVs, maybe at least a third of what else is out there, because every automaker basically has one. So comparing this to the Ascent, the Explorer, the Traverse, the CX-9, the CX-90, vehicles like that, I do think this holds its own. It's definitely in the same ballpark pricing, you know, in the mid 30s up to the low 50s, but it actually puts the power down pretty well. Doing a sub 8 seconds 0 to 60, even at my altitude, that's pretty impressive for doing that naturally aspirated. With only a V6, having all the creature comforts and all the features that this thing has is actually pretty impressive too. The electronics, the technology, hopefully it all ages well, hopefully it's all reliable in the long term. But hey, you have a long factory warranty when you buy this, even without buying an extension. And my initial impressions on this slightly used one is it was a very fun vehicle to drive, and it's actually one of my favorite 3-row SUVs I think I've driven. It just feels more sporty than a lot of the competition. It looks maybe a little bit more sporty. I haven't driven the Telluride, but I do like the exterior design of that slightly more. Anyways, guys, what are your thoughts? Because I want to know. So comment below. Like this video if you guys get the chance. Subscribe if you want to watch more. Keep in mind, I'm just a random person that you met on the internet, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. And if you want to buy this one or any of the other dozens and dozens and hundreds of cars that are at the Twin Falls Chevy, check them out. Again, they sell below MSRP, they ship all over the country, and there's a reason why I love working with them so much. Anyways, guys, I wish you the best. Hope you take care. Until next time, see ya.